you have a tough job in this movie in that you're not only kind of the heart for and the inspiration for Mike, but you're also like the person that's reacting to everything happening from home. So kind of like it injects that fear that, everybody else would feel to have a family member in a situation like that. So how did you bridge that gap? How did you kind of bring that to life in portraying those two feelings?
I think like any process when you're making a film, you work very closely with your partner in crime, which for me in this was Mark and Pete. And I think for this it was really important that Felicia represented something that was bigger than just necessarily their story. This was a story for a lot of families that were in the dark for quite a bit of time, what that felt like. And here we are trying to sort of get that feeling in a very short period of time because we've got a lot of story to tell in a short period of time. And I think Pete did a really wonderful job. I was always nervous about that because I was like, do we have enough? Is it going to feel, impactful? And I think right. Pete really, did do in the best way, like just picked really lovely moments that I think are very relatable for people that I think will kind of give them a little punch in the gut when it comes to sort of looking at your own life and going, what would happen if the rug gets pulled out from under your feet? What happens if you ever get that phone call, which nobody ever, wants to get, and the fear that a lot of people have when their partners are in high risk jobs. They kind of, you kind of try to not think about it
right.
until you have to think about it.
Yeah.
And so I think it worked. I think it really. I felt emotional, so that's very rare when you're in something and it hits you. So.
Oh yeah. So how did you and Mark? How did you guys come together to like figure out how to present this relationship on screen so that it would have that weight? When those moments came, like, did you guys like get together and say, okay, this is how we want to approach this, or was that more Pete, or how did that come about?
There's a couple things. I think there's chemistry. Chemistry is always, you just never know if you're going to have chemistry with someone or not. And then if it's going to be like a forced type of chemistry, if it's just going to be easy. For Mark and I think we just had a nice experience together. We really sort of, it felt very, very easy. And you talk about it, you talk about what kind of family you are and what your energy is and how long you've been together and the things that you can't stand about someone. I think too, when you've like been in relationships with kids and you've been through the ringer and you know what the grind is when you're in a family, and you know what that is when you love them, and you know what it is when you can't stand them, and you know what it is when they drive you crazy about certain things. It's kind of easy to get into that. I think Mark and I have had plenty of familial experiences with our kids and relationships to be able to like slip into that pretty easy. And so and then we talked to Mike and Felicia about what their pros and cons are as a couple. And at the end of the day, it was most important because Mike and Felicia, what you realize is that they really depend on each other.
Right.
And that unit, even though at times it might not necessarily in their life before the Deepwater Horizon, incident, that there were moments where maybe they now look back and go, I'll never take this unit for granted again, and that, I'll never not think about how I share my day with my family.
Right.
Very close family.